My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 35 years old. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I've spent most of my life working hard for every little thing I have. I run a small but successful event planning business. I don't just arrange parties, I make moments unforgettable. I believe life is about kindness and empathy. I believe that even in the smallest gestures, you can change someone's day forever. Before I tell you what happened, I want to ask you, where are you watching this story from? Are you in Toronto? New York? Los Angeles? Somewhere else? Whoever you are and wherever you are, I promise this story will make you feel something deep inside, whether it's shock, anger, or hope. Let me take you back to that night, a night I will never forget. It was a Saturday evening in late summer, and I was hosting what was supposed to be the biggest party of the year for my family. It was my Uncle Michael's 60th birthday. I had spent weeks organizing it. I booked a beautiful rooftop hall downtown in Toronto. I hired a live jazz band, arranged catering, ordered the most luxurious cakes, and even arranged for a photo booth. The cost was big, bigger than anything I had ever spent for a family gathering. But I loved my family. I wanted this night to be perfect. Everyone knew I was paying for it. I had told my cousins, my aunts, my Uncle Michael himself. They were happy, excited even. But what happened that night changed everything. As guests began arriving, laughter filled the rooftop. Glasses clinked, music floated through the air, and the city lights below sparkled like 1,000 tiny stars. My Uncle Michael was smiling when he first arrived. But I could see something in his eyes, something strange. Then, in the middle of the party, when everything was going beautifully, Michael suddenly stepped forward, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. He pointed at me, his face twisted in anger, and said, "What are you doing here? You're not welcome here." The music froze. The laughter stopped. Guests turned to look. The room became quiet. I just smiled. I looked at him and said softly, "Understood." Nobody understood what had just happened. I didn't say more. I walked away. I left the rooftop quietly, my heels clicking softly on the marble floor. People whispered. My heart was pounding. My mind was racing. 43 minutes later, my phone rang. It was an angry call from my cousin Claire. Her voice trembled with rage and disbelief. "Don't tell me this is true." I had marked the payment for the party as disputed. That's when everything exploded. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages flooded in. My family, the people I had loved and worked so hard for, suddenly turned against me. Some were yelling. Others were crying. I didn't know who to believe anymore. That was the moment I knew my life had changed forever. But what happened before that moment? Why did Michael act like I was an enemy at my own party? Why would he say something so cruel? And why did I mark the payment as disputed? You'll have to follow me through this story to understand. Before all of this, my relationship with my Uncle Michael was complicated. He had always been the strong, proud man of the family. To everyone outside our family, he was generous and wise. But behind closed doors, Michael carried grudges, some I still don't fully understand. The truth is, I had been walking on eggshells around him for years. I tried to ignore it, hoping things would change. But I was wrong. That night, everything came to the surface. And I knew, deep inside me, that I had to do something. Something bold. Something that would make my family remember this night forever. But I couldn't have predicted just how shocking it would turn out to be. At that rooftop, under the Toronto skyline, the moment my uncle spoke those words, I felt something inside me shift. I wasn't afraid. I was calm. I smiled. I left. And I knew the war had quietly begun. But then came the phone call. 43 minutes later. The one that changed everything. What they didn't know was that this wasn't just about a party or money. It was about trust, betrayal, and something much deeper that Michael had kept hidden for years. And now it was about to come out. That night ended with me standing alone in my apartment, staring out the window, wondering what would happen next. My phone kept buzzing. My heart kept beating fast. And I knew one thing for certain. I was ready for whatever was coming. But I had no idea just how far this would go. Because what happened next was something nobody could have expected. The moment my phone rang 43 minutes after I left the rooftop party still plays in my mind like a haunting echo. I remember staring at the screen, seeing Claire's name flash repeatedly. I didn't answer at first. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring into the darkness of my apartment in Toronto. Finally, I picked up. Her voice was sharp, panicked, and full of disbelief. "Olivia, don't tell me this is true. You didn't do it, did you?" she asked, her voice trembling. I could hear guests still murmuring about what happened at the party. Somewhere in the background, I heard her younger brother, my cousin, shouting. It sounded like chaos. "Claire, listen to me. I marked the payment as disputed," I said calmly. "I need you to listen before you judge." Her voice broke into tears. "Olivia, we don't understand. Michael, he was furious. You just walked away like nothing happened. This is your family. How could you do this?" I took a deep breath. I couldn't explain everything to her in that moment. There was too much history, too much pain behind what had just happened. But I knew one thing. My Uncle Michael had crossed the line. And that night, I wasn't going to let him get away with it. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my laptop. I began scrolling through photos from the party. There were pictures of smiling faces, laughter, and glasses raised. Then I came across a video someone had taken, just before Michael said those words. In the video, I could hear him whisper something to Claire. Something that made her look shocked. I froze when I saw it. I couldn't hear exactly what he said, but the look on her face was clear. It was fear. I knew then that this wasn't just about money or pride. Something deeper was going on. Something dangerous. The next day, I decided to take action. I contacted a close friend, Emma, who works in financial dispute resolution. She was sharp, reliable, and someone I trusted completely. Emma listened to my story with quiet attention, then said, "Olivia, if Michael really said that to you at your own party, then you need to protect yourself. And disputing that payment might be the first step." Emma agreed to help me gather the proof I needed. Over the next few days, we began collecting messages, contracts, and payment records. I knew Michael wouldn't just let this go. He was a man who never backed down once he decided something was right, even if it meant hurting the people he loved. During those days, I stayed mostly to myself. I avoided the phone calls from other family members. I avoided parties, dinners, and texts. My world became about investigation and preparation. But then something unexpected happened. My younger cousin, Jake, Michael's nephew, showed up at my apartment unannounced. Jake was 28, full of energy, and had always been closer to me than to Michael. "Olivia, I need to talk to you," he said, sitting at my kitchen table without asking. His voice was low, almost conspiratorial. "This isn't just about the party. Michael, he's been keeping things from the whole family. Things that could ruin everyone." He looked exhausted, scared even. His hands trembled as he spoke. I leaned forward, urging him to continue. "You have to be careful," he said quietly. "He's dangerous when he feels threatened. And Olivia, he feels threatened by you." That statement sent a shiver down my spine. I had expected anger from him. I hadn't expected fear. That night, I lay awake, thinking about Jake's words. My mind was spinning. Was this about family politics? Was it something personal? Or was Michael hiding something much worse? The next morning, I got a call from Emma. Her voice was urgent. "Olivia, you need to see this. I found something important. Something that changes everything." She told me to meet her in a cafe downtown. When I arrived, she handed me a folder filled with documents. Contracts, receipts, emails. I flipped through them quickly. Then I stopped at one email. It was from Michael's personal email account. The subject line read, "Final payment, confirm cancellation." The email was dated 3 days before the party. My heart sank. Michael had clearly planned something before the party even began. Emma looked at me, her expression serious. "Olivia, you're right. This isn't just about the party. He set you up." Before I could ask her what she meant, my phone rang again. This time it was Michael. His voice was cold. "Olivia, we need to talk. Now." I froze. I knew if I answered, it could change everything. But then I heard something in his tone, something I hadn't heard before.
Fear.
And then I made a decision. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent him a text. We'll talk. But not tonight. I put my phone down and for a moment, silence filled the room. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Michael calling, it was Claire. Olivia, you have no idea what you're doing. Please don't do this. We're family. I stared at the message. Family. That word echoed in my head. And I realized something, the party, the disputed payment, Michael's words, they were all just the beginning. That night, as I sat on my balcony overlooking Toronto, I felt the calm before the storm. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew it was going to be something extreme. Something that would change everything forever. And I wasn't wrong. The next morning, I woke to a text message that made my stomach drop. It was a photo of the rooftop hall, but with something disturbing. Something that would push me deeper into the fight I didn't know I had started. The message was simple. Just 3 words. We know everything. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at my phone. My hands were trembling. My mind was racing. And I knew whatever was coming next was going to be far worse than the party. I stared at my phone for what felt like hours. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. That photo, that message, we know everything, felt like a threat. But I didn't know who it was from. My Uncle Michael? My cousin Claire? Or someone else entirely? I put the phone down and tried to breathe. I walked to the balcony, letting the cool Toronto night air wash over me. I thought about the party, about Michael's words, about Claire's panic, about Jake's warning. Somewhere deep inside me, a voice whispered, "You're in something much bigger than yourself." The next morning, I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to find out who had sent that message. I opened my laptop and began tracing the email and phone number. But it wasn't easy. Whoever sent it had covered their tracks. By afternoon, Emma called me again. Her voice was tense. "Olivia, meet me at the cafe. There's something I need to show you, something urgent." When I got there, Emma slid a thick folder across the table. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. Financial records showing large, unexplained withdrawals from accounts linked to Michael. Receipts for expensive items, large cash transfers, payments to unknown companies. "Olivia," Emma said quietly, "this isn't about a party. Michael has been hiding something, and it's big. These transactions are just the start." I looked at her, confused. "But why send me that message?" She shook her head. "Maybe he wants to intimidate you. Maybe he wants you to stop. But, Olivia, you've already stepped into this. Now you have to see it through." That night, I tried calling Michael. I wanted answers, but he didn't pick up. Instead, I got a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Olivia, or you'll regret it." I froze again. My stomach sank. Whoever this was, they knew I was investigating. And they weren't going to let me continue without a fight. The next day, I decided to attend a small family gathering. I needed to see Michael in person, to confront him. But when I arrived, something strange happened. My car had been vandalized. The tires slashed. My windows smashed. And a note placed under my windshield wiper read, "Stay away." Fear hit me like a truck. But so did determination. I knew now I couldn't back down. Later that night, Jake came to my apartment. His face was pale, his eyes wide. "Olivia, you're in danger," he said. "Michael isn't the only one involved. There are others. And they're watching you." Before I could ask him what he meant, he handed me another photo, this one of the party, taken from above. In the picture, I could see Michael whispering to someone in the crowd. And beside them, a man I didn't recognize. "Who is he?" I asked quietly. "I don't know," Jake said. "But Olivia, he's important. Dangerous." That night, I barely slept. My phone buzzed constantly. Every time I looked at it, I was filled with dread. Who was threatening me?
And why?
Then, just before dawn, my phone rang. The caller ID said, "Unknown." I answered, my voice shaking. On the other side was a deep voice. Cold. "Olivia, stop. You don't know what you're getting into." Before I could reply, the line went dead. My hands were trembling. My heart was racing. I knew this was no longer just about a family argument or a disputed party payment. This was something much bigger. And then, my phone lit up with a video message. It showed the rooftop hall from the night of the party. But something was wrong. The camera zoomed in on a corner of the hall where Michael had been standing. There was a small object on the floor. Something metallic. Something that looked like a recorder. The video cut to black. Then a single line of text appeared. "We're watching. Always." That was when I realized, the party, Michael's words, the threats, it wasn't random. Someone had been planning this for a long time, and I had just walked straight into it. The next morning, I received a message from Claire. "Meet me. Alone. Midnight. Pier 7. I stared at the message for minutes. My mind raced. Was this a trap? Or a plea for help? Somewhere deep inside me, I felt the truth. Whatever happened next, it would change everything. That night, I stood at Pier 7, watching the water lap quietly against the dock. The air was cold, and the city lights reflected on the surface of Lake Ontario. My heart beat faster. Somewhere in the dark, I knew Claire was coming. But I also knew something was waiting for her too. And then, I heard a voice behind me. "Olivia, you shouldn't have come." I turned slowly and froze, because standing there was Michael. The night air was cold, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones. The lights of Toronto shimmered faintly over the water at Pier 7, but my attention was locked on Michael. His face was set in a hard expression. His eyes burned with something I couldn't place: anger, fear, or something else entirely. I took a small step back. My voice shook, even though I tried to make it steady. "Michael, what are you doing here?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at me in silence, as though weighing his words. Then he said quietly, "Olivia, this isn't what you think it is." I swallowed hard. "Then explain. Why threaten me? Why call me unwelcome at my own party? Why the payment dispute?" Michael shifted his weight uncomfortably. "It's complicated, but I'm trying to protect you." I stared at him. Protect me? The words felt empty. His tone didn't match the danger I felt from him lately. I wanted answers, but something told me he wasn't going to give them easily. Before I could say more, I heard footsteps. Claire emerged from the shadows of the pier, her face pale and drawn. She looked between me and Michael nervously. "Olivia." "Michael's right," Claire said softly.
You don't understand.
"You have to let this go." I glanced at her, confused. Let this go? After everything?
No.
I want answers. Michael's expression hardened. He stepped closer to me. "Olivia, I'm telling you for the last time. Stop this investigation. You're in danger." I shook my head. "I'm not afraid." Claire stepped forward. "Olivia, please." Before I could answer, Michael turned and walked away into the darkness. Claire followed quietly after him. I stood frozen at the pier, my thoughts racing. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. My mind was filled with questions.
Who was threatening me?
What was Michael hiding? And why had Claire sided with him? The next day, I decided to do something less extreme, something that would help me think clearly. I booked a quiet afternoon at a cafe, brought my laptop, and began organizing all the evidence Emma and I had gathered. I made timelines. I compiled emails. I connected dots. While sipping my coffee, I noticed a man sitting at another table, watching me. His presence was subtle at first, but there was something about him, the way he sat, the way his gaze lingered, that felt deliberate. I felt uneasy, but I ignored it. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. As the afternoon went on, I noticed him again.
And again.
Eventually, he got up and approached my table. "Olivia Carter?" he asked quietly. I froze. "Yes, do I know you?" "No," he replied. "But I know you're in trouble." He slid a folded piece of paper across the table. I glanced at it briefly. It was a photo, another from the party, but this one was different. It showed me speaking to someone near the rooftop bar, and in the background a man in a dark coat was watching us closely. His face was partially hidden, but there was something unsettling about him. "Who is he?"
I asked.
The man shook his head. That's what you need to find out. But be careful, they're watching you now. Before I could respond, he stood up and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. My heart raced. I folded the paper and tucked it into my bag. My mind was spinning. Whoever this man was, he was clearly trying to warn me. But warning from whom? Michael?
Claire?
Or someone else entirely? That night, I tried to call Jake. He answered quickly, his voice filled with tension. Olivia, you've stirred something dangerous. Michael was right. You shouldn't have gone this far. Jake, what's going on? I asked urgently. Who's watching me? Why is everyone hiding things? He sighed. I can't explain over the phone. Meet me tomorrow night. Alone. Pier 9. I hesitated. Pier 9? Another secluded location? But I knew I had to go. I needed answers. When I hung up, my phone buzzed again. It was another message from the unknown number. You're running out of time. I stared at it for a long moment. My hands trembled. My heart pounded. Something deep inside me told me that the danger was getting closer. That whatever I was chasing me too. The next day, I tried to live normally. I went to work, I greeted clients, I laughed at a few small jokes with coworkers. But my mind was never at ease. Everywhere I looked, I felt eyes on me. My phone buzzed constantly with unknown numbers. That evening, as I prepared to go meet Jake, I noticed something strange. My apartment door was slightly ajar. I froze. Slowly, I pushed it open. The place was quiet. Everything seemed normal, except for the small envelope on my kitchen table. It was addressed to me, in Michael's handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a single card. No letter. No explanation. Just one sentence. They're coming for you. The sound of my phone ringing made me jump. It was Claire. Her voice was shaking. Olivia, don't go to Pier 9 tonight. It's a trap. Before I could respond, the line went dead. My heart was pounding. My thoughts raced. I knew one thing. Whatever happened next at Pier 9, it would change everything forever. And I had a feeling I wasn't going to come back the same. The night air was heavy when I arrived at Pier 9. The moon reflected softly on the water, casting silvery light over the wooden planks. The pier was almost empty, except for a faint figure standing at the far end. My heart pounded as I approached. Jake stepped out of the shadows. His face was pale, his breath visible in the cold night air. He looked around nervously. Olivia, you shouldn't have come here, he whispered. I shook my head. Jake, you called me. You said you had answers. He glanced over his shoulder. I do, but we don't have much time. Jake handed me a small, worn notebook. Inside were names, dates, and phone numbers. But it wasn't ordinary. It contained notes about people, meetings, and events, including my own life. It even listed the date of the party. What is this? I asked. A warning, Jake said gravely. Michael is not the only one involved. There's something bigger. Something dangerous. You're in the middle of it now, Olivia. Before I could ask more, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind us. Someone was coming toward the pier. Jake grabbed my arm. We need to leave, now. But it was too late. A shadow emerged from the darkness. A tall man in a dark coat stepped toward us. His face was hidden. He stopped just short of the pier's edge. Olivia Carter, he said in a low voice. You need to stop this, or you'll regret it. Jake tightened his grip on my arm. Run. We both turned and ran, my heels clicking hard against the wood. But before we could escape, I heard something behind me, a sharp metallic sound. A gunshot. I screamed. Jake pulled me down behind a stack of crates. My heart was pounding. My breath came in short gasps. The man in the dark coat was gone. But the message was clear, they were coming for me. We stayed hidden for what felt like hours, my mind spinning with fear and confusion. Eventually, Jake pulled me to my feet. We can't stay here. We need to regroup. We ran through narrow alleys, avoiding streetlights. Finally, we stopped in front of a small cafe on the edge of the city. Jake pushed open the door, and the warm smell of coffee hit me. The atmosphere inside was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. We sat in a corner booth. Jake pulled out his phone. "Olivia, we have to figure out what Michael is hiding. But first, we need to know who that man was." I nodded, still trembling. "But Jake, why me? Why is all this happening to me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slid his phone across the table. On the screen was a picture of me from the party. But this time it was different. It was a close-up. My face looked shocked, terrified even. And beside me was Michael, whispering something into my ear. "Do you see it?" Jake said quietly. "This isn't just about the party. He's been planning this. And you're the target." Before I could reply, my phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen. From an unknown number. "You should have listened. Now it's too late." The cafe seemed to go quiet around us. Jake's face was pale. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. We both looked toward the door. And that was when I saw them. Two figures in dark coats standing outside, staring directly at us. Jake grabbed my hand. "Olivia, we have to leave."
Now.
As we rushed toward the back exit, my phone buzzed again. Another message. "We're closer than you think." That was when the cafe door slammed shut behind us. And the lights went out. Darkness. That was the first thing I noticed when the cafe door slammed shut. The hum of conversation stopped abruptly. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor faded. The smell of coffee and pastries seemed to disappear. Jake and I froze. The only sound was the pounding of our own hearts. "Olivia, stay close," Jake whispered, pulling my hand tighter. His voice was low, tense. We moved slowly toward the back of the cafe. Every step felt heavy, every breath loud in the silence. Then faint footsteps.
Slow.
Calculated. Coming closer. Jake pressed me against the wall. I could barely see his face in the dim light from my phone screen. He was pale, his eyes wide with fear. The footsteps stopped. A shadow moved in the doorway. A figure stepped inside. A man, tall, wearing a dark coat, his face hidden under a hood. He moved quietly toward us. "Olivia Carter," he said again, his voice deep, chilling. "You need to stop. This isn't safe for you." Before I could speak, Jake pulled me toward the back exit. "We don't have time." We stumbled into the alley behind the cafe. The cold night air hit my face. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. "You're not safe anywhere." I tried calling Claire, but the call went straight to voicemail. I called Emma instead. She picked up on the first ring. "Olivia, I've been trying to reach you. I've found something important about Michael, but it's not safe to talk over the phone." "Where can we meet?" I asked. "Tomorrow night. The address will come in a message." The line went dead. Jake and I walked through the quiet streets of Toronto, both of us tense, looking over our shoulders. We ended up at my apartment, but I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake all night, staring out the window, thinking about what Michael, Jake, and that unknown man had said. The next day was quieter. I spent most of it going through the notebook Jake had given me. It was filled with names I didn't recognize and phone numbers. But one thing stood out, several names repeated over and over, always connected to meetings, payments, and strange locations. It was enough to confirm what Jake had told me. This was bigger than just a family dispute. That evening, I tried calling Michael. His voicemail picked up immediately. "Olivia, this is Michael.
Don't call me again."
"Stay away." It was the first time he'd spoken directly to me since Pier 7. His voice was cold, final. I sat quietly, staring at my phone. That night, my phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. "Meet Claire tonight. Pier 12. Midnight." I knew it could be a trap, but I also knew I had no choice. I had to find out what Claire knew. At midnight, I stood at Pier 12. The water was dark, and the air smelled of salt and steel. Claire arrived a few minutes later, looking anxious. "Olivia, I didn't want you to come," she said softly. "This is dangerous. Michael is dangerous. You can't stop this." I looked at her. "Claire, what's going on? Why are you protecting him?" She took a deep breath. "Because if you dig too deep, they'll come for you. And they won't stop." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. They know you're here. Claire gasped. Olivia, run. But it was too late. A loud crash came from behind us. We turned, and in the shadows I saw figures approaching, at least 3 of them, dressed in dark coats. Claire grabbed my hand. This is it. They're here. A wave of adrenaline hit me. My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't know if we would make it through this night alive. The figures stepped closer. The largest of them pulled something from his coat, a gun. The sound of my phone buzzing again cut through the silence. I looked down at the screen. Another message. This is your last warning. And then, a loud explosion echoed across the pier. Claire screamed. Water splashed. The pier shook. And everything went black. The explosion shattered everything. The air filled with a sharp smell of smoke and burning wood. My ears rang. My heart thudded so loud it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. Claire screamed again, and I grabbed her arm. We stumbled backward together. The sound of splintering wood and breaking glass filled the night. Somewhere behind us, people were shouting. Footsteps pounded on the pier. Water splashed against the boards. I couldn't think clearly. My vision blurred. I grabbed Claire's hand and pulled her toward safety. We ran, feet pounding against the wet wood, the sound of chaos chasing us. We made it to the edge of the pier. The explosion had left a crack in the wooden floor. Water surged in quickly. A wave of icy cold water splashed against my shoes. Claire clung to me tightly. Olivia, what's happening? She gasped. Her voice trembled. I shook my head, unable to answer. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Stop now, or you won't survive. Claire looked at me with wide eyes. This is getting out of control. We found ourselves running through a narrow alley away from the pier. The sound of shouting and footsteps grew fainter. Eventually, we stopped, both of us breathing hard. Claire leaned against the wall, her face pale. We need a safe place, she said. Somewhere no one can find us. I nodded.
I knew she was right.
But where could we go? I remembered Emma. She had been helping me investigate. Maybe she could help us now. I called her. The line rang twice before she answered, her voice low and urgent. Olivia, where are you? Are you safe? No, I said quickly. We need a safe place to meet. Somewhere private. She gave me an address. A small cabin on the outskirts of the city. Don't tell anyone where you are, she warned. And don't go alone. Claire and I agreed. We left quietly, avoiding main streets. The night felt heavy, and every shadow seemed to hide danger. We reached the cabin hours later. Emma was waiting. The cabin was small but warm. Inside, a fire burned softly, giving the place a strange sense of comfort. Emma handed me another folder of documents. Olivia, this is what I found. Michael isn't just hiding something. He's part of something much bigger. I took the folder and began reading. My mind spun. There were names of powerful people, bank accounts in other countries, and even coded messages. Michael's name appeared again and again. This is dangerous, Emma said quietly. Michael has connections. People you don't want to cross. I looked at Claire. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. Why didn't you tell me this before? I asked Emma. I didn't have proof, she said softly. Now I do. We spent the rest of the night going through the documents. Every piece of paper made the situation more dangerous. It was clear that Michael wasn't just involved in a family dispute. He was part of something much darker. Just before dawn, my phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. Tomorrow night. The truth. Pier 14. I looked at Emma and Claire. We didn't say a word. We all knew what this meant. That night, sleep was impossible. My mind raced with questions. Was Michael planning something worse? Was Claire in danger? And most importantly, was I ready for what was coming? The next evening, we stood at Pier 14. The air was thick with fog. The water was dark, and the lights from the city seemed distant. Claire clutched my hand. Emma stood beside us quietly. My phone buzzed one last time before the pier grew silent. A shadow emerged from the mist. Slow, deliberate. And then I saw him. Michael. His face was pale, his eyes fixed on me, and, in his hand, something shiny. A knife. The fog wrapped around Pier 14 like a living thing. It muffled the sound of the water. The city lights seemed to fade behind a haze of silver mist. I froze when I saw Michael stepping toward us, his movements slow but purposeful. Claire squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. Emma stood slightly behind us, her expression unreadable. The air felt heavy. Every breath we took seemed louder in the silence. Michael stopped a few feet away. His face was pale, his eyes fixed on me. He raised the object in his hand. It was a knife. "Olivia," he said softly. His voice was calm, but his tone carried a dangerous edge. "You have no idea what you've walked into." I swallowed hard. "Michael, why? Why all of this?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer.
Claire gasped.
Emma shifted her stance, as if ready to act. "Michael, put the knife down," Emma said quietly but firmly. "It's not too late to stop this." Michael's eyes flickered between us. Then, without another word, he tossed the knife into the water. It landed with a splash that echoed across the pier. He stepped back, his shoulders tense. "You should have listened," he said quietly. Then, without another word, he turned and walked into the fog. Claire let out a shaky breath. "What just happened?" she whispered. I didn't answer. My mind was spinning. Why had Michael come here with a knife? Was it to threaten me? Protect me? Or something else entirely? Emma spoke finally. "This isn't over. Whatever Michael is involved in, it's bigger than all of us." We left Pier 14 quietly. The fog swallowed Michael's figure as he disappeared. None of us spoke on the way back to the cabin. The silence was heavy, filled with questions we weren't ready to answer. The next day, we spent hours going through Emma's documents. We pieced together what little we could. Michael had been part of a network involved in money transfers, secret deals, and dangerous connections. It was clear that he had been trying to protect something or someone. Claire seemed distant. She barely spoke. Jake wasn't with us, and I wondered where he was. By evening, Emma looked at me seriously. "Olivia, if we're going to get to the truth, we need to confront Michael directly. And we need to be careful. He's not the only one involved." I nodded. I knew she was right. But the thought of facing Michael again, of confronting him, terrified me. Later that night, I received a message from an unknown number again. This time it was different. No threats. Just an address and a time. Warehouse 23. Midnight. I showed Emma and Claire. Emma frowned. "This could be the break we've been waiting for." Claire shook her head. "It's a trap. I can feel it." But I couldn't ignore it. I knew this might be the only chance to uncover the truth. At midnight, we arrived at Warehouse 23. The building was old and abandoned, the air around it cold and still. A single light glowed faintly inside. We stepped in. The air smelled of oil and rust. My footsteps echoed. Claire stayed close to me. Emma moved quietly ahead. And then we heard voices. Michael's voice. Low, urgent. But there was another voice too. Deeper, harsher. I couldn't recognize it. We crept closer. Peering into the shadows, we saw them. Michael and the tall man in the dark coat I had seen before. They were talking in hushed tones. And then the man turned toward us. His voice was cold and sharp. "You shouldn't be here." Before I could react, the lights in the warehouse went out. Everything went black. The darkness inside Warehouse 23 was suffocating. The faint smell of oil and rust was mixed with something metallic, sharp, cold. My heart pounded so hard I was certain Michael and the man in the dark coat could hear it. Claire gripped my arm tightly, whispering, "Olivia, we should leave." I wanted to agree. I wanted to run. But something inside me told me this was the moment I had been preparing for. This was where the truth would come out. Emma stepped forward quietly, her phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. The beam illuminated Michael and the tall man. Their faces were tense. They spoke in low voices, their words muffled. Then suddenly, the man turned sharply toward us. "Olivia Carter," he said. His voice was cold. "You have to stop." Before anyone could answer, a loud sound rang out, like metal hitting metal, and the lights flickered back on. The warehouse was filled with people we hadn't noticed before. Men and women, all dressed in dark clothing, stood in shadowed corners. Their faces were hidden. Michael's expression hardened. He stepped toward us. "It's too late," he said quietly.
Claire gasped.
"Michael, what's going on?" He shook his head. "Olivia, you were never supposed to find this out." The tall man stepped forward. "You should have stayed away," he said again. Suddenly, chaos erupted. People moved quickly. Voices shouted orders. I felt someone grab my arm and pull me backward. Emma's voice rang out. "Run." We scrambled toward the exit, the noise of shouting and footsteps chasing us. My mind raced.
Who were these people?
And what did Michael mean when he said I wasn't supposed to find out? We burst out into the cold night air, gasping for breath. Claire and Emma followed close behind. We didn't stop running until the warehouse was far behind us. When we finally slowed, Emma pulled out her phone. "Olivia, we need to regroup. We can't go back there. But we need answers before it's too late." The next day was quiet. We avoided contact with anyone. We stayed in the cabin, going through Emma's documents again. We pieced together more of Michael's network, names, locations, transactions. It was like a puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit. Claire seemed distant. She barely spoke. Jake wasn't with us, and I wondered where he was. That evening, Emma pulled me aside. "Olivia, I think Michael will come to you. He has to. And when he does, be ready." Before I could ask her what she meant, my phone buzzed. It was another message from the unknown number. This time it was a video. I opened it. My breath caught. The video showed the party rooftop. But in the corner of the frame, Michael was speaking quietly to the tall man. Claire was standing nearby, looking frightened. Then the camera shifted and showed me, not smiling, not laughing, but standing in the shadows, speaking into my phone. The message below the video read, "You're too close. Finish it before it's too late." I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. Claire stepped beside me, her voice barely audible. "Olivia, they're going to kill you." Before I could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID was Michael. I hesitated. My hand shook. Then I answered. "What do you want?" I asked. His voice was cold but steady. "Meet me. One last time. Pier 17. Midnight." The line went dead. I looked at Emma and Claire. Both of them stared at me silently. I knew then, whatever happened at Pier 17 would be the end of the story. And maybe the end of me. The air at Pier 17 was heavy. The city's lights reflected faintly on the dark water, but there was no warmth. Only fog, silence, and tension. Claire, Emma, and I stood together, each of us lost in our own thoughts. None of us spoke. We all knew this was the moment everything would change. Midnight came. A clock in the distance chimed once, then twice, then a third time. From the fog emerged Michael. His face was pale, his steps slow but steady. In his hand, he carried nothing, but his expression was grave. "Olivia," he said softly, "I warned you. Now it's time you knew the truth." I took a step forward. "Why, Michael? Why all of this? Why threaten me? Why send those messages?" He glanced at Claire and Emma before speaking again. "I didn't want to involve you. I've been protecting you, all of you, from something much worse. This isn't just about money, Olivia. It's about survival." He took a deep breath. "Years ago, I got involved with a group. They promised safety, influence, power. But it came at a price. They control everything now. I thought I could stop them. I thought I could protect my family. But they found out. And now they're coming for you." My mind raced. So the party, the threats, the fights, it was all to protect me? Michael nodded.
"Yes."
"That party was never just a celebration. It was a warning. I wanted to keep you away from them. But I failed." Claire stepped forward. "Why not tell me? Why keep me in the dark?" Michael's eyes softened. Because I couldn't risk it. If they knew I told you, they'd kill you. Emma spoke quietly. Then why bring her here tonight? Michael looked at me directly. Because I have no choice. You deserve the truth. And you deserve the chance to fight. I stared at him, my heart pounding. Everything I thought I knew was unraveling. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence. Footsteps, heavy and fast. Figures emerged from the fog. At least 5 of them, dressed in dark coats. Faces hidden. The tall man from before stepped forward. His voice was calm, but filled with menace. It's over, Michael. She's ours. Michael stepped in front of me.
No.
She's not. Olivia, run. Before I could move, Emma grabbed my arm. We're not leaving you. A loud crash echoed. Lights flashed. Shadows moved. Chaos erupted. I didn't think. I ran. Claire and Emma followed. Michael stayed behind, facing the approaching figures. I ran across the pier, my breath ragged, the sound of shouting and footsteps behind me. I didn't stop until I reached the end of the pier. I turned. Michael was still there, standing between me and them. His eyes locked on mine. For a moment I thought he would smile. Instead, he whispered, "Whatever happens, Olivia, remember. Kindness and courage matter more than anything." Then a loud shot. The world went black. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed. Claire was there, holding my hand. Emma sat beside me, her eyes tired but relieved. "You made it," Claire whispered. "Michael, he saved you." I looked at them, tears in my eyes. "What now?" Emma took my hand. "Now we live. And we make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain." Later, I looked out my hospital window at the city. The fog had lifted. The lights shone bright again. And I knew that whatever happened before, whatever dangers still lurked, I was ready. Because I had learned something Michael had tried to teach me all along. No matter how dark the night, kindness and courage can light the way. And I would never forget that.